I want to welcome everybody to the West Ada Board meeting. It is October. It's August 8th, 2022 at 6 p.m. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are none.
All right, I just want to comment that Trustee Bachland and Trustee Benetti are both remote tonight, so they'll be commenting, but they're in the sky. So they're participating. If we could now turn the time over to Dr. Bubb for Superintendent's update.
Madam Chair, Trustees, just a couple things. Number one, we're heading into the school year with a lot of excitement. We were able to meet with our administrators from around the district last week, and there's just this level of excitement as we move forward. We are hiring. If anybody's out there listening, we are hiring classified staff. If I didn't mention, we're hiring classified staff. We're doing everything we can. We recognize that our classified staff are really the oil that makes our machine work every single day, and so we're doing everything we can to make a huge hiring push between now and the start of the school year. With that, we recognize that our campuses, we have a limited, and when I say limited, a very small grounds crew due to the staffing issues that we've seen across the valley. And what we're proposing is this Saturday, August 13th, we're asking for volunteers to come out and just participate in cleanup of their community school. Show up. We'll have bags there to help. If you can help weed, if you can help plant things, whatever it takes to make that school look just a little bit better. We'll have representatives from the district there, representatives from the school there, and we anticipate that it's going to be an exciting event. We look forward to it. I know our executive team will be at several locations throughout the day, and so from 8 to 12 on Saturday, and really that's just to help out and everybody chip in. We've mentioned many times that it takes an entire community. We just want everybody to try to chip in and get our schools in shape for the start of the school year. And then the last thing I would say is I just want to say thanks to the Kiwanis. Kiwanis dropped off 300 backpacks for students that need, and those backpacks are filled with things. So we'll be ready to go to make sure that our families that need it have the support from West Ada and from Kiwanis. So thank you to Kiwanis. Registration fair is my last piece. Registration fair is going on right now as we speak. I walked down there earlier. Thank you to all the people that are participating in that and parents for their patience as they try to get their kids through the registration process. Always exciting this time of year.
Thank you so much, and we're excited about the cleanup this Saturday, and yeah, we will be there. That's going to be great. Next, we have our district spotlight, which is going to be done by our director of our Education Foundation, Carrie Davidson. Excited to hear from you.
Good evening. I'm Carrie Davidson, Director of the Education Foundation for the West Ada School District. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Bubb, I'm honored to be here tonight to speak to you about the rich history of the Education Foundation with the West Ada School District. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been watching a documentary on Derek Jeter. And in this documentary, he talks about how he felt, what he was wearing, what he was doing, what he had eaten the day that he was drafted by the New York Yankees. Obviously, I have never been drafted by the New York Yankees, but it started to make me think about the first time that I had heard about the Education Foundation. I was sitting in a presentation from the previous director, and she started using words like unpaid school lunch balances and gas gift cards and rent for unaccompanied youth. And I thought to myself, I had no idea that West Ada had needs like that. And I also thought to myself that at some point, I wanted to work for that organization at some point in my career. In 1987, the Meridian Education Foundation was actually founded by community members who wanted to help teachers in the classroom. They knew that teachers were spending a lot of their own money and they wanted to help with innovation and creativity in the classroom. At the time, they had 6 board members. Those board members raised $600 and gave that money to our teachers. At that time, our mission was actually founded, and that's the mission that we still hold today, to provide supplemental funding and support for educational programs and projects in classroom innovation for the benefit of students in the West Ada School District. In 1988, that board got together and decided that they could raise more funds than the $600. They implemented 2 events. Our spring event, which still holds true today, we actually host an in-person gala, which we haven't been able to host in the last couple years. And our golf tournament, our Linking Up for Kids golf tournament, which actually takes place next week. Over the past 34 years, those 2 events have generated over $800,000 for the Education Foundation for the West Ada School District. In 2011, the board got together and decided that if they were going to take the foundation into the future and into perpetuity, they had to open an endowment. And this came after the 2009 economic downfall, to where the executive director actually was let go and became a contract employee working 15 hours a week. The foundation board in 2016 started having a lengthy discussion about basic needs in West Ada. To that point, they had never offered funds for basic needs in West Ada. It was solely for the purpose of creativity and innovation in the classroom. The board held a lengthy discussion that lasted over a year, and in 2017, the board, then 20 members, decided that they would offer basic needs to students and families in West Ada. The West Ada Education Foundation raises money in a couple various different ways. First of all, through our events that I mentioned. Of those 2 events, 40% of the funding of those events goes into our creativity and innovation for the classroom. 60% goes into our endowment. We have a Thank a Teacher program that goes directly into the teachers' funds that are housed with our Education Foundation. This past year, we've brought in over $150,000 for our teachers through Thank a Teacher. We apply and receive numerous grants throughout the year. We apply to local and national organizations like the Albertsons Foundation, Idaho Women's Charitable Foundation, Idaho Community Foundation, and the Yeager Trust. Individual donors, though, is our bread and butter. This is where the Education Foundation can and will continue to thrive. As I mentioned, over the past couple years, we've awarded over $150,000 in classroom grants to our teachers. It's an honor and a privilege to visit our teachers to award them these dollars that they have applied for through the foundation. Some of the items that we have funded in the past are robotics, a literary vending machine at Chaparral, combination locks at Summerwind, farm to school projects at Lake Hazel Middle School, and of course, special services. The funds and programs that we help through basic needs are our Housing Plus High School Equals Success, which is for 18 to 21-year-olds in our district who are unaccompanied that receive $100 for a rent payment every month. Bridge the Gap, pay-to-play sports and activities. That includes sports, activities. We help with yearbook sales. We help with senior pictures. We help with birth certificates. This year, we have a very close relationship with our school nutrition as well. We are expecting a high demand in unpaid school lunches, and that's where the foundation will step in this year. We host numerous scholarships throughout the foundation. We have an accounting scholarship, a future of education scholarship, and across many of our high schools, we also host different scholarships as well, like the Prowl Scholarship at Rocky Mountain. The foundation hosts accounts for every school, every teacher, numerous PTOs, and all of the elementary ASB accounts. The future of the foundation is bright. In the past couple years, we've been sitting down with donors. Dr. Bubba and I just had a great one-to-one donor meeting with one of our largest donors last week. For the foundation to continue to grow, we are focusing on donor output and donor relations. We get to sit down with our donors and ask them about what their most important needs are, whether it's in high school, whether it's sporting events, whether it's the arts, whatever it is, we have a program that will match these their ideas and where they want to put their money. Community outreach in the last couple of years has been especially important to me. The last couple of things that I've heard is that a lot of people didn't know that we had a foundation, or they didn't know what the foundation did, or they don't give to the foundation because we have high fees and we do not. The foundation, if you give through the foundation in any way, shape, or form, we do not take any fees whatsoever unless it's a credit card, right? We have 3% credit card processing. Unfortunately, we cannot get around that. 100% of a donation goes to any school, any program that our donors would like it to. We're obviously focusing on the growth of our endowment, and we're looking to build new scholarships as well. The foundation staff is very small. We work well together, and we're extremely powerful. It's myself, a full-time employee, Carolyn Olson, who is our admin assistant, part-time assistant, Erin Gillen, and Melissa Billister, who does our accounting. The board, I'm extremely proud of our board for 2022-2023. We have 12 members from various backgrounds, from Jackson's Food Stores to Lamb Weston. We have numerous West Data employees as well, like Jennifer Fletcher from our professional development, and Debbie Aholt, who is our new, who is a new board member from Meridian Elementary. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about the foundation tonight.
Are there any questions or comments? Trustee Baclian or Trustee Benetti, do you have anything? I'm going to guess that's a no. Hope they're there. Okay. Vice Chair Zuna?
Thank you. I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for the work that you and your team do. I've been to several of your events. I've never been to one without crying. I'm always so touched to hear the stories that our students go through. It's really difficult for some of our kids. And so thank you.
Absolutely.
And just the extra that you do for our teachers, our staff, and the way that you rally around West State. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was fantastic. And
Thanks for your
really, all
time.
the work you do is outstanding.
Thank you.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
All right. The next part of our meeting goes to our patron input. We didn't have anybody sign up, so I wondered if there was anyone that was wishing they had had that opportunity. Anything that's agendized, you're welcome to come up and share your thoughts on. Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward to the consent agenda. At this point, I will open to any motions on that. Trustee Redford?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion made. Is there a second? Vice Chair
Second.
Zinn? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I'm not hearing them. Are you guys hearing them okay? I'm not sure if they're there. Do we want to check that, or? They have to unmute. Trustee Bachland, Trustee Benetti, if you can hear me, we need you to unmute and say if you support the consent agenda. They show they're there. All right, should we take that as a yes? You see it? Technology.
Yeah, they should be there.
It's good to find out.
Yeah, so if they called in, they should be there.
I just need to look at your votes.
Okay.
Trustee Backley. Yep.
And I can barely hear it.
Thank you.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
That's not good.
Uh-oh.
Thank you. They both voted aye.
Right. All right, so 5 ayes, no nays, so
Did I hang up on
the
my
consent
speaker?
agenda
Speaker. I hit
is
the
passed.
speaker button.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we?
Right.
Okay, we're going to get this squared away before we move to our discussion.
Hello, Cisco Unity Connection Messaging System.
Okay, Trustee Benetti, Trustee Bachland, we're going to do that vote one more time on consent agenda. So we had a motion and a second. All those in favor of consent agenda, say aye. Aye.
Trustee Benetti votes aye.
There we go. All right, any nays? No, motion carries 5-0. Now we will move on to our discussion. Nice job, thank you, Ken.
Point of order, Chairman.
Yes.
Point of order, Chairwoman.
Yes, Trustee Benetti?
I and I think Trustee Bachleon will both stay on mute, and if you ask for input and we say nothing, then it means that we have nothing to offer, and if so that's my perspective. Trustee Bachleon, do you agree? Agreed.
That sounds great. That's what we'll do. Perfect, thank you. All right, and moving on to discussion now, Greg Wilson, our Chief Communications Officer, is going to go over our third reading for Policy 401.2.
Chairman Frazier, trustees, Dr. Bubb, good evening. I'm here to present the third and final reading of District Policy 401.2. Again, I want to thank those staff, teachers, counselors, and principals who participated on the work group, and to all who have provided input these past 2 months. Creating comprehensive and well-rounded policy that applies across a large organization like West Ada is always a challenging process. I believe all input has been provided in good faith with the goal of making this a better policy for all. First, let me reiterate the district's policy in updating this goal, or this policy, the district's goals in updating this policy. In addition to ensuring our district's policies align with Idaho law, it is important to ensure West Ada schools be content neutral and positive learning environments. Kevin Leishman, the principal at Sawtooth Middle School, put it best when he presented to the board on July 11th, when he said that West Ada, quote, has a moral and legal obligation not to put undue influence on the captive audience that we have with our students, end quote. Cliff Rice, the principal at Oahe High School, also stated that this policy provides clarity so principals' own biases are not the standard, and most importantly, West Ada's educators are protected. The most important point about this process is that we moved from a policy that seemed restrictive to a policy that's about facilitating these goals and works in classrooms and at the school building level. So there are three policies or three components of this updated policy. The first affirms the district's intent that all staff follow Idaho law, specifically the Dignity and Non-Discrimination Act in Public Education, and that's in Title 33. The second part expands on existing language around student surveys. Whereas all past surveys were prohibited, this policy creates a process for staff who want to issue student surveys. Recently, the administration, Nick Smith, our deputy superintendent, and Amy White, our general counsel, prepared an initial list of approved questions and provided these to the working group for consideration, comment, and possible additions. And ultimately, the identification of an approved survey questions will be available to all teachers at the start of the school year. These two sections largely are unchanged from the second reading. The final component of an updated 401.2 covers the appropriate use of the district's physical property. And let me quote from that policy one more time. Quote, school property shall not be used by personnel for the advancement of individual beliefs. It is the desire of the district that the physical environment of district facilities be content neutral, conducive to a positive learning environment, and not a distraction to the educational environment. The most important adjustments we've made from the second reading to the third reading is regarding the list of examples which give direction to teachers and administrators. A key change based on feedback last month is stating that displays in a classroom in the aid of learning and motivational posters are acceptable, and I think that that's important. And ultimately, although this list is comprehensive, it also clarifies that there may be items that align with these standards and that are not included in this list. But items on this list must also be content neutral and remain in alignment with the intent of the policy. And I want to reiterate to the board one more time that teachers on this work group asked for this list to be included, and that's a very, very important thing. They needed that reference and that resource. So let me close with a few final points. This policy does not limit any West Ada employee or student from exercising their lawfully recognized speech or association rights within the limit of a public school environment. And furthermore, this policy does not pertain to curriculum and the teaching of controversial issues. That is covered elsewhere in district policy. This policy is about creating the best environment possible for student learning and is consistent across our school district. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll take questions.
All right, we're open to questions. Vice Chair Zuna?
Thank you. Not a question, just a comment. I just want to acknowledge that when this policy was first introduced, I don't think that we did a very good job explaining why the changes were requested and what our intentions were with this policy. And I think that that created a lot of extra concern for our staff, some of our students, some of our community members. And, you know, I'm sorry that we put people in that position, but as a result of that, something really great came out of it. You know, we formed this committee, we got really good input. There were a lot of one-on-one conversations. I know from the executive team, from board members, I'm sure teacher to teacher, teachers to, you know, other staff members. There's been so much good conversation that has come out of this, and I think that we've come up with something that works in a really difficult situation. But the only other thing that I want to say is through these conversations, I've really recognized that some of our students need additional support. And I hope that we've all heard that and can look at opportunities for these kids to have the clubs that they need or staff member support. And I don't know what that looks like in our schools, but I do hope that we have all heard that and that we continue to build upon that for our students. Thank you.
Any other comments? Trustee Benetti or Trustee Baclean? Okay, anything else? Trustee Redford?
I just want to kind of piggyback on what Trustee Ozuna said. I've really appreciated the process from the first reading to the third reading, how the committee was formed. There was mutual respect on both sides. It was a really great representation of how we should be operating in society in general, and just a mutual respect. I appreciate all the time that was put into it, and I also just want to say that I trust our wonderful educators to be able to create a safe space for all of their students and build those relationships. They're truly gifted at that, and I appreciate everybody that was involved in this and had their input. Thank you.
All right, and I'll just finish it up with my thoughts that really go along with that as well. I love the input that took place with this. I love the idea of 3 readings. I love that patrons all got an opportunity, I think. I felt like a lot of people really got the opportunity to comment. I got a lot of emails. I got stopped in the grocery store. It was great to hear everybody taking part in our school district and in what's happening. I love that. Greg, thank you so much for all the work you've done on this and presenting it to us tonight. You've done an excellent job. We just really appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, now our Deputy Superintendent, Nick Smith, gets to come up and pretty much put on the Nick show. We have several that he gets to do. He'll start with policy 500.1, our secondary attendance policy, and we'll go from there.
Good evening, Madam Chair and trustees. It's my pleasure to present these 4 policies to you tonight for a second reading. As stated, the first 2 policies before you tonight are policy 500.1 and 500.2, secondary attendance policy and elementary attendance policies, respectively. The changes being presented to you tonight are based on feedback that was received in the first reading and feedback from district administration. The first change reflected in both policies, and I'm going to do both of these together because the changes are the same, basically, But the first change reflected in both policies is updating the language of Joint School District Number 2 to reflect the verbiage West Ada School District. So that's something that we had talked about during the first reading, so we've made that change. The second edit that you're going to see is the elimination of the attendance codes. Again, this is something that came up during the first reading. And the issue around that is the attendance codes really are procedural in nature. That's something that isn't necessarily something that would belong in policy. And so what we've done is we did confirm that these attendance codes are listed in PowerSchool. They are listed on the attendance reports that parents can access in PowerSchool. So there really is no reason for them to be in the policy themselves. They're reflected elsewhere in district procedural documents and resources. The next change that you're going to see here is under excessive absences, where we have updated the language around homebound services, and this just is an update to better reflect our current language and practices and how we address the needs of those homebound students. And that is it. Are there any questions on policy 500.1 or 500.2?
All right, any questions or comments? No, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, 603.2.
All right. So 603.2, the high school credits and graduation requirements. The document that you see before you in the agenda is basically the same document that you saw when we presented for a first reading. There were no changes made to this draft. What we have talked about, there is some need in the future to potentially pull out some of this and put it into a procedural type document, but based on the time of the year and trying to get this approved before the start of the school year, we haven't done that at this time. But as we go through our process that we're going to be adopting for reviewing and revising policies, we will work on pulling out the procedural type stuff. But at this time, we would ask for you to approve this one as well, as written. Are there any questions on 603.2?
Any questions or comments? Once again, excellent job. Wait, pardon me. Sorry, Trustee Benetti?
Chair?
Yes.
Chair?
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
I'm sorry, Superintendent Smith, Assistant Superintendent Smith, did you suggest that we are going to approve that tonight, or did I mishear you? Pardon me.
Thank you, Trustee Benetti and Chair Frazier. We aren't asking you to approve it tonight, just there were no changes based on this from the last reading.
Thank you.
Okay.
And the last policy that I have here, 603.21, again, like the last one, there are no changes to this policy from the last reading either. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on 603.21.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I think that's all. You're released. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, now we have Marcus Myers, our Chief Academic Officer, is going to go through the first reading of our 22-23 Continuous Improvement Plan. Marcus has entered the building. That's an earlier joke, sorry.
Thank you, Chair Frazier, trustees, Superintendent Dr. Bubb. It's not easy to follow the Nick show, but I shall do my best to make good things happen here. We get the opportunity to talk about our continuous improvement plan at West Ada. Want to take a moment to talk about the why behind the plan, what it's used for, what it is and what it isn't, and then talk about next steps with what do we do when we've established goals in West Ada for student learning, then what is the process behind that. So do want to let the public know who are listening, those present with us tonight, that the board did receive the full draft copy of the SIP plan. I'm not going to go through that point by point at this meeting today, but that is posted. It is available for public viewing, and the draft was received by the board. In addition to that, at our public meeting last week for the board summit, the information within the draft and some of the goals, conversations were had around establishing ambitious goals, what those goals would look like, number of students represented behind those goals, and essentially talking about where we would land the plan with student learning in setting those goals. I do want to thank some team members who I get to work with each and every day that I'm very grateful with. Kelly Davies and her work behind just the transparency of data and the tools behind data made the construction of the SIP plan this year an adventure we could do just very quickly and in a time frame to where we could get back into starting our buildings up as soon as possible. Instructional leadership, those are the faces behind the work that's going to get done with it, and of course our students and teachers within the building and our building leaders who assisted in data analysis and creation of the document. It is a goal-setting document for the 22-23 school year, and it is required by the State Board of Education, and it is required that we post this on October 1st by the upcoming school year. The SIP plan identifies academic achievement and proficiency with statewide metrics. These are those metrics that all students take across the state of Idaho, and these are summative assessments that basically say where students are at the end, typically at the end of the school year. It utilizes 2 data points. It is a spring to spring posting of data, meaning that it isn't a it is a year to year comparison of specific cohorts at those grade levels within those subject areas. And in a sense, it is an accountability document for the state. It is also an accountability document for us so that we can take a look at what were those processes and procedures, strategies that were put into place over the course of the year, and what did that do in terms of student achievement as measured by the assessments that are in the plan. And again, like I mentioned, it's required to be posted on our website by October 1st. We are a little bit ahead of the game with this year, and so we are able to really take some time and take a look at those goals and strategies, and we should be in plenty of time for an approval and posting by that deadline. So the SIP plan, what it is and what it's not. So the continuous improvement plan, the SIP plan, what it is it's a yearly common reporting protocol for the state of Idaho. It is required for districts across the state. What it's not is this ongoing collection of student achievement data. We do that in West Ada through our common assessments that we do on a quarterly basis and throughout the course of the year. We use that data for planning, instructional planning. Really, our SIP goal tells us of all that planning, of all the analysis of common assessment data, how close did we get to hitting the mark for student achievement as compared to other districts across the state of Idaho. It is a reporting tool, but not a strategic planning tool. It really is saying at the end of the year, here's where our data lied. It's a previous year's data when applicable, and it's goal-driven only. And so what that means is that it's really about where we landed the plane last year, but identifying also where are we going to land it this year in terms of student achievement. It discusses, though, but it doesn't discuss the processes by which we get there. You'll notice that within the draft that we gave you, though, there is a timeline in there that works as our summary of the strategies behind how we'll measure progress toward the SIP. We use that as our summary statement about what we're going to do to get there. It's a one-time communication tool for stakeholders, which means it's posted on October 1st, and in all reality, it's not touched much at that point. It's posted there so that stakeholders can see it at any point. We do use that to then set short-term goals and short-term strategies toward the long-term goals, but it isn't a progress reporting tool for stakeholders that way. It doesn't talk about where we're getting as we move throughout the course of the year. That will be presented to the board that way in terms of our common assessment data. It identifies the product at the end of the year in terms of student achievement, but it really doesn't identify the process by which we got there. And I know I've mentioned that a few times. When you review the SIP data itself, I just want to note a few pieces. First of all, it doesn't actually say where data wound up at the end of the year. So for example, it identifies what were our previously identified goals and then asks for this year identified goals, but it doesn't note where we actually wound up at the end of the year. On areas where we did create those as target and focus goals within West Ada, we did add that data point just for the public and for our stakeholders and for the board members, but it really doesn't ask for that as a minimum requirement, nor does it ask for anything behind mathematics, which is why we included additional mathematics goals and components within there. This again is the process by which we get there. I just wanted to point this out within the SIP because it is an additional component that we added in West Ada for transparency with our stakeholders and with our board so that we can have those discussions around what are the timelines for units of instruction, an assessment behind what we know students need to learn, and then how do we respond as a system, as an individual school, and as individual classroom and collaborative teams to get us there. And the next steps are this. The second reading will be on August 22nd. That reading will include the revisions from the board input from the summit last week. Okay. This draft was just created prior to that time frame. The due date to post on the website is October 1st, so that team will be prepared to have that ready to go, posted before that date, most unlikely. School success plan PD response, what I want to talk about with that is that the plan and the processes by how we get there, each individual school in West Ada, and with instructional leadership today, we started the process of drafting our district-wide success plan. Those are the processes and the steps, the procedures and those strategies by which we're going to get there and how we're going to monitor those results. That begins the very first day of school. There is no delay behind that, and that process is ready to start and get started with our benchmark assessments, right, starting once school starts. All right. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have or additional input behind goal settings on our SIP plan.
Any comments or questions? Trustee Benetti or Trustee Bachleon? All right, Marcus, we appreciate it so much, and the workshop we got to go through last week was so informative. It's exciting to hear the things you have planned and the excitement that you have for it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes the discussion part of our meeting. Now we'll move to the action portion, and I'm open to any motions. Trustee Redford?
Motion to approve policy 401.2.
All right, we have a motion to approve policy 401.2. Do we have a second? Vice Chair Zuna?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye. Trustee Benetti votes aye.
All right, and so with 5 ayes, the motion carries 5-0. Are there any future agenda items that anyone has? None for this evening? All right, and with that, I'm open to a motion to adjourn. Trustee Redford?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Trustee Benetti votes aye. Trustee Buckler votes aye.
Perfect. Motion carries 5-0. Have a lovely evening.